From the John DeVita Broadcast Center, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Paranormal Radio with Bob Trzeciak on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network. So sit back and enjoy Paranormal Radio. And now, here is the super king of Paranormal Radio, Mr. Bob Trzeciak.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much. It's a joy coming back here every month to do these shows. Just enjoy doing them. It's great, and you come into contact with so many interesting and wonderful people, and it's just a wonderful experience. And thank you to all the folks that over the years have been faithful to it and listened to the shows. Mr. Leland Pierson.
Hello.
King of Paranormal Radio, co-king of Paranormal. We still haven't thought about. We can't call you Queen of Paranormal Radio.
I mean, you can.
We can't call you Prince of Paranormal Radio. We have to come up with some co-king. Until I come up with something better, you're the co-king. Yeah. So Leland is co-king of Paranormal Radio. He's our co-host here on the show, which is great. I'm glad I brought Leland in on this because in addition to Leland's wonderful personality and the things he knows, he's also a very good tech person, and I'm not. I don't know how to do anything tech. What can I tell you? I still wind up my record player, so that's where I'm at with technology. Tonight, kind of a neat show. I'm looking forward to this. I have Miss Tola T. Omar with us. She has a wonderful store called Tola's Creations up in Marquette Park, which is kind of a neat. It's a very neat store. It's a metaphysical store, very much in tune with African-American products and African things, and just a wonderful little shop to go into and visit with. And it's a cozy atmosphere, and they do all sorts of workshops and everything. And I thought, let's get Tola on here and let her talk about the shop, and we'll do that and bring her on that. And before we get started with that, Leland, you got anything to bring up?
No, I've been super busy in the outside world, so I'm sorry. I got
not to worry about that. You just kind of jump in with things, and that's it. When you got something to say, go ahead. Okay, Tola, we're going to introduce you, and you just start talking, chime in. Let us know all about the store. Let us know what's going on with that. Let us know about yourself. This is your chance to throw your plugs in.
Well, thank you for having me today, Bob.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. So my name is Tola Tifase, and I am the owner of Tola's Creations, Botanica Wellness and Cultural Center. We are located 2943 West 71st Street, and we are generally open Monday through Saturday. Monday through Friday, it's 11 to 6, and on Saturdays, it's 12 to 5. And what do we sell? We sell a lot of everything. So we have curios, we have spiritual items, spiritual goods, we have metaphysical items, crystals, herbs, wellness items. We offer workshops. We have workshops on community healing, which is very major in communities of color. So we have community healing workshops. We also have a workshop with you, Bob, of course, this Saturday.
We're doing palm
readings,
Saturday,
yes.
What exactly is community healing? Now, what does that involve?
Okay, so we have we have licensed therapists that come in, and we basically talk about emotional trauma, things that we have been through. Sure. Some people have PTSD, just different types of problems that generally in certain communities, it's like taboo to go to therapy. And so we're basically just trying to create a safe space at the...
That's a great idea because, so many people don't even have access to that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
They don't. And it's great, too, with something like this where it's a friendly atmosphere, it's an informal atmosphere, and they're maybe a little more open to talk and a little... It's not like they're, in a sterilized doctor's office or something where they might be a little more afraid to open up. They may not say. Something like this where you're like with your peers and with other people maybe like you in a relaxed atmosphere, they open up a little more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the whole key in having a safe space. And, just to give me a little background about myself, like back in the early 2000s when Illinois closed down a lot of the mental health facilities, I started working. I used to be a dispatcher for Chicago police. And as working for the dispatcher, I noticed that we would have a lot of disturbance with mental calls. And I'm like, is the whole city? What's going on with the city of Chicago?
Yeah.
And I was not aware that we had a problem. So this is like 2005. I'm realizing that now it's like a snowball effect that we're realizing that so much is going on in the community. And then fast forward to later on in my career, I was working in corrections. I was a correctional officer for Cook County Sheriff's Department. And even with that, so most of the people who were being arrested or getting the police called on, now I see them. I was like, okay, these are the people who
They're not
we're getting
criminals.
the calls.
They're
No,
not criminals.
need
They're not
help.
convicts. They're nothing.
Absolutely.
They're just a little disoriented. They're ill. It's a sickness.
Absolutely.
And I hate to see, and we all see this. Every neighborhood, you see these people walking around. You see this go on and all this. And I do that myself. Sometimes I look at these people and I think, my gosh, just with a few visits to the right doctor, with the right treatment, they could be a normally functioned person, working, functioning for themselves. And instead, what happens is they're wandering, or they sit in the place and somebody calls the police on them, and they don't know what to do. They arrest them. They put them in jail. They don't belong in jail. Yeah. They're ill, so that's good. You're kind of filling a little bit of a void
so I'm
there.
just trying to do my due diligence and do my community work.
Yeah,
and it
you.
doesn't even have to be anything serious. Sometimes you could just be going through something, and
Absolutely.
it could be just the loss of a parent, and you'll just have that break, that psychotic break. And
I think at one point or another, we've all gone through something.
So
yeah.
we're all functioning with dysfunction at this point,
Yeah.
And again, Tola's Creations is just there to create safe spaces. That is a free workshop. So we do have a workshop this Saturday from 11 to 1. It's Unpacking Trauma, Steps to Community Healing. It's free. If you do make a donation over $30, you would get half off of your intake assessment.
Okay.
So if you begin your therapy sessions with the licensed
with the person that's doing
there.
Now, who's the person that's doing
his name is Malefi. Let me give you his.
I think I saw it. I looked up on the page, I'm horrible at names.
It is.
I'm lucky I remember my own.
Yeah, we call him, but his name is Stephen Hall.
Okay.
So that's his
Good. Okay.
government
Yeah.
name is Stephen Hall, but we
Good.
call him Malefi.
And he'll be there doing the workshop. So great.
He'll be there doing the workshop.
So there you go. So if you want to, jump in on something like this, it'd be an opportunity to do it. And like I say, it's more of a relaxed atmosphere.
Yes.
Something like this, people might be a little more receptive to than, like I say, a more, something more formal with like a doctor or something that might be a little.
You don't have the insurance, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How often are these workshops?
As often as he's available.
Great.
So we had one about a month ago. So it's generally like once a month or whatever his availability is. We try to make it happen.
So I'm going to dive deep one more question. If somebody wanted to look into this, is there like a calendar or a website somebody could look at to see what is offered? Or when
sure. You could go to www.tolascreations, TOLAS creations.com. You could go on the website. You can check the Facebook page. You can see what we have. But I'm posting everywhere. So any social media, you'll find the events. Just go on our events page.
That's
the way to
something
do
I
it.
hold really dear is like just accessibility to mental health. I'm excited. I'm like, I love the spooky and the paranormal, all this, but once this, I'm like, I got really quiet. It's like, I like this. This is, I didn't know, I know these things exist, but it's not often I get to sit.
They've
and
made
talk
so
to
many
somebody.
cuts with mental health now. It's almost non-existent.
They did.
And what little help out there is so hard to get, and there's such a long wait. You call to get an appointment. It's a 6-week, 7-week, to get in to see a doctor. So it's nice that there's something alternative like this.
Yeah.
But I also want to point out now too that the shop Tola's Creations doesn't just do things like this. They also do other fun things too. That are just and fun
Therapy
and
is
enlightenment.
always fun.
Yeah. They're not only there for that. They're there for other things too. So check them out and see what they got going on. I'm sure you'll find something for everybody there.
We have a workshop with you, Bob.
Yeah,
so
that's
the
right.
fun part. Let's get into that fun part.
No,
At
that's not the
3:30.
fun part. No, I'm kidding.
This weekend I'll be there. We do
Yes.
a palmistry workshop with that. We'll be going through fortune telling and some of the ways of telling fortunes and that, and then we do a little tutorial where we give people just a little lesson so they have a little bit of understanding of their own hands and some of the lines in it, so they have a little better understanding of chiromancy or palmistry, however you'd like to call it. And then after that we do readings for everybody. So it's kind of nice. The last one we did was kind of nice. I liked it. We had a nice little group there. It was nice. I liked the atmosphere and everything like that. So we're back now doing another one. So
Absolutely.
So hopefully that will work out well. So
Yes.
it's
Yes,
nice.
yes.
And also too, just stop in the shop and say hi and come in and take a look and see what they've got in there. They got a lot of nice things, nice merchandise things to look at, and a lot of it is all with the community and African American geared. Now the thing I saw was the water.
Yes.
You had the water, and you said African American water.
Yeah, bottled water.
Yeah,
So,
African owned.
Yes. So I found out about this water through my dad. My father lives in Alabama. And he had come to visit quite a few times, and he kept talking about this water, 1186. And I'm like, he's like, it's black owned. And I'm like, I've never heard of a black owned bottled water company.
I was thinking the same thing. I thought, geez, is they piping this in from the Nile in Egypt or something? Where's it coming from? I'm like, yeah.
So it's black owned, and before I opened, my cousin, he would travel back and forth. And so he's a truck driver. And he brought me, cases of water. He was like, cousin, you could, put this in your store. And I was like, thank you. You're the best. Thank you so much. Yeah. And so I thought it was just very unique
was cool.
to have
I
it.
like that.
Absolutely.
When I saw that, I thought that was the
neatest
thing.
Yeah, it's not, it has a good taste. I'm very finicky when it comes to different types of water. I don't just like any type of bottled water. But this one, I like it.
It's getting tough now. You don't know, like a lot of the bottled water that's out there now for sale. I wonder if it's really like this water that's coming from this mountain spring, and someone's out there gathering, or it's just turning the tap on and putting this in there, and that's it. I mean, how do we know? You really don't.
True. They claim it's from like a spring in Italy, but I'm sure it's from like a can in Detroit.
Yeah, it comes out of the tap. Here you go. That's it. Yeah. Once upon a time, the city of Chicago water supply just came right out of Lake Michigan. The pipes just went right into the lake, and from the lake it just got piped right into the everything in the city and that. And in the 1880s, we had a very serious cholera outbreak in the city from bad water supply, until they started doing filtration there, because you got to remember the lake at that time was pretty polluted to begin with, because we had the stockyards, we had that, so a lot of refuse and a lot of stuff was going into the lake, and then your drinking water is coming right out of there. So what were you getting? It wasn't too great. Until somebody got the idea that we need to do something else here. We need filtration. We need purification, and that started around the time of the 1893 Columbian Exposition, because for the fair they wanted water. But they didn't want the Lake Michigan water. They wanted pure water. They wanted good water, so they did that. And then the water that they sold at the fair for the people, and that was so good, they said, we got to do this. So that's what they did. They filtered their own water for the fair, and it worked out very well, and then they started using it for the city. So there's the history lesson for that. Yeah.
We're all over the place today. I'm loving it.
Yeah. Now, to kind of get us into the paranormal a little bit, and you guys jump in on this.
Haunted water. Let's go.
Water is a carrier, actually,
See,
of hauntings. It is. It is. A lot of people do not know that. That's why I love New Orleans, and that's one of my theories on why New Orleans is such a haunted city, because it's surrounded by so much water.
That was an article I read.
Peninsula, right?
It's not really a peninsula. It's almost an island. You've got the Gulf Coast right there, and then you've got the Mississippi, which crescents around the city, hence the Crescent City. And then off to the other side, you've got Lake Pontchartrain and the bayou. So it's almost pretty much island. It's surrounded by a lot of water, and water kind of does carry a lot of the paranormal, so that's why that city has a lot of activity.
Tell me more about other lakes, Bob. You seem to got all the names down. You got everything.
Oh, we have a lot of lakes.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, a lot of lakes here, and we have some ghost stories about lakes too. Yeah,
Lake Lanier.
Yeah. There's a lake. There was a lake, supposedly a sea monster on Lake Michigan one time, and then of course the Christmas tree ship went down in 1912, and supposedly that haunts on Christmas Eve. If you're standing in the right vicinity and the conditions, the atmosphere are just right, a lot of times you get a glimpse of an old three-masted wooden sailing vessel coming by, and people attribute that to the ghost of the Christmas tree ship.
I know it's like 80 degrees outside, and it's not Christmassy, but I don't know if we talked about this. So one of the hotels I manage is out on Navy Pier, and there's a lot of boats and stuff, and they have one of the boats, they hang a Christmas tree on the front of the bow. And I was looking at that the other day, like 8 months ago. I was like, I wonder if that has anything to do with the Christmas tree boat.
They still do have a Christmas tree ship. They do carry the tradition on with it, but now it's like a Coast Guard ship that comes and brings the trees in and that kind of thing. They do it still, so something that they did many, many years ago and kind of continued on. Going to talk about vampires. Boy, what a switch, huh?
Yeah. Merry Christmas.
From Tola's creations, from talking about mental health and wonderful things with that, and about the black-owned products with the water and all that, and then the Christmas tree, and we're going to talk about vampires. Vampires.
Welcome to Paranormal Radio.
Yeah, that's why it's Paranormal Radio. Kind of a misunderstood thing. I think most of us are familiar with the vampire mostly through Hollywood. And through what we've seen in the media and what Hollywood has shown us with the films over the years that have scared the daylights out of all of us. But there is actually definitions of vampirism. And there are some people that are vampires or think they are vampires. And then there are some people that have an illness that is a vampirism illness. So we're going to kind of cover just a little bit of this. I won't go into really, really depths about this until I do your show, Questioning the Weird.
Right.
And then we'll go into all the details. But definition of a vampire is somebody that was once mortal but is now made immortal through no direct fault of their own, but just through an attack, being bitten and live through the attack, much the same as like someone with a werewolf attack too. Same type of thing with lycanthropy, with werewolf. You've been attacked by a werewolf, you live through it, and now you yourself become a vampire. A werewolf, you become a vampire. Same type of thing. So through no fault of their own, they're attacked. They live through it. Now, if you're attacked and you die, that's it. You're dead. That's it. But if you're attacked and you live, then you become a vampire yourself, and then you have that. Possibly there are people that actually do believe they are vampires. There is a disease called porphyria, or Renfield syndrome it's called, and it's people that actually do have the symptoms of vampirism. They are very susceptible to sunlight. Sunlight burns them. They do have a desire to drink blood. A lot of times their gums are ill-shapen, and what it does is actually cause the teeth to come down, so it almost appears as if they have fangs. They do have a strong desire to drink blood in some cases. Some cases they don't. But there are a lot of symptoms of vampirism, the classic mythological vampires, and it is a disease. It's a rare disease, granted, but nonetheless is a disease. So it is something that's possible. Then you have the people that want to be vampires. You do have these, I call them the wannabe vampires. And there are people, you have cults. Every city has one of these, which is kind of interesting. And I just mentioned New Orleans. New Orleans has a huge cult of vampires down there. And for some reason, they find me. When I go down there, it's easy for me to talk. Maybe I'm just one of those people that can, detect vampires, because some people can. They can, hi. Some people can detect. She was just filming some stuff here, taking some pictures, and I decided to wave into it. But some people actually do join this, and it's they live the vampire lifestyle. They like night, working at night, living at night, being active at night. They do have the desire to drink blood. Some drink blood, some don't. Some of them that drink the blood, actually the blood is done by people that are donors, and these people themselves may not be vampires, but they donate their blood to people that are, and they drink it. So it's a strange little cult in that. But when you talk to some of them you find out they're not bad people. I mean, they're people like everybody else, but this is sort of a lifestyle that they choose, something that they like. I found out with people that maybe aren't that serious about this lifestyle, but just maybe want the glamour of it. Usually whenever some new movie comes out, like it was great when the Twilight series came out, or like Interview with the Vampire, when that came out, all of a sudden everybody wanted to be a vampire, because they wanted to be young, they wanted to be good looking, they wanted to live that lifestyle, they wanted to have that money and all that, and that's not often what's involved with it. So every time something like that comes out, you find a lot of people that all of a sudden want the vampire lifestyle. Then we have the emotional vampires, and we've all known one of these. These are the people, yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Why are you pointing at me, Bob?
Yeah, these are the people that when you're with this person just drains your energy.
Yes.
This person, it's all about them. It's all about me. It's all, them. They drain your energy. They just completely drain you out. And by the time you're done visiting with this person, it's like, oh, my gosh, I've had enough of this. It's like you never want to see that person again. But yet somehow, some people are drawn to them, just like a vampire does draw its victims to them with that hypnotic thing. And some people find themselves drawn to this type of people. And it's like, oh, my gosh, I never want to go out to eat with them again. I never want to socialize with them. And then the next time they call, yeah, sure, I'll go with you. Because they just have this desire to find out what's going on in their life and what's the news and all this. And then they find themselves in the same situation. After it's all over, what the evening is through, they just find themselves drained. Those are the emotional vampires. A lot of times you're fatigued from it too. You can really just sleep and just say, oh God, I need to take a break, or you get a headache. I know sometimes when I'm around people like that, I get a headache from them. And I try not to... try not to have too much contact with some of those folks. I want to be polite about it, but some of them you just don't want to have that much contact with. It's a temporary excitement, too, for some people. Some people like being around this type of people because it's like a temporary excitement. It's like, oh, I'm going to find out what's going on in their life and what their neighbors are doing. They tell you all this and all that. So some people are kind of just drawn to this, and I think that's wrong. Or sometimes I think you're just plain nuts, and that draws you to somebody like that. So try to seek out people like you, and people that can benefit your life, and people can enlighten your life, and something you can share with them, and they can share with you. You don't want somebody that's going to just drain your energies into nonsense and nothing. You don't want that. So we do have these emotional vampires, too. Although they don't necessarily have to drink your blood, but they do drink your energy out of you. They do suck the energy out of you. Yeah. The vampire wannabes, I mentioned that already. We talked about that. And, of course, we have the vampires in film, which everyone likes. They just did, now in 1994, they did that Interview with the Vampire based on the Anne Rice books. That was with Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt. And, of course, that was a big hit movie and everything at that time. And now last fall, they did another new one.
I think
it was
it's
on
a
AMC.
series,
it's on
right?
AMC, yeah. And it's Sam Reed, I think it is, and Lou Jacobs play the Lestat and Lewis characters. They play them, and it's a whole new take on the whole thing. It's different. I saw like the first couple of episodes of it, and it was okay, but it was a little different from the other one, which naturally they're going to update it and they're going to make it different. So whenever a new film or something like this comes out, watch. All of a sudden you're going to find a group of vampires, all people that all of a sudden want to do that. The idea of this undead thing is not as new as you think. Now, the vampire came into pop culture for a lot of folks with, of course, the writing of the famous Bram Stoker novel, Dracula, which was written in 1897, and the book became a big hit, and it was something very different that no one had ever read before, and it was something entirely of his creation. Although a lot of this came from European legends, a lot of this stuff entered into Eastern Europe, and a lot of it entered into Eastern Europe through Egypt, from Egypt. And it went that way. And then Eastern Europe became like the hub of this in Romania, Yugoslavia, Eastern European countries. And to this day, still, they do have a very strong belief in vampirism, and especially in the Carpathian Mountains and in Transylvania, where they have Castle Dracula. There was an actual Dracula, Vlad Dracul, nothing to do with vampirism. He just was a very fierce warlord, and he liked to impale his victims on stakes. I don't know anything about him drinking their blood, although some people say they do, but any research I've done on him never shows him drinking blood. But nonetheless, he was a very gruesome person. So it was based. So a lot of these things kind of, a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there, and that's where these legends all start. Vampires in pop culture, another thing. Of course, like I said, right after the book came out, it wasn't too long after the plays started being done. And when they first performed the play Dracula in theaters and things on Broadway, and that people would faint, women would faint in the aisles from it, But yet it was that hypnotic thing. People found themselves drawn to it and drawn to the theater. The idea of this handsome, charismatic person that could draw you in and just kind of, get you to do their bidding and their will. They're also very sexual creatures, too. It's a very sexual thing and a very romantic thing, even though vampires are somewhat solitary people. They're in it just for the benefit of themselves. That's why they draw you into it, just like the emotional vampires do. The emotional vampires draw you in and drain your energy out of you just for their own benefit. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to get involved with them. There are people that can detect vampires, and I think I'm one of them. Because somehow or another they find me. I don't know what it is, but some people do, and usually it is gypsies, Romanian gypsies. I'm not one. I'm not from Romania. Don't have Romanian ancestry, but somehow these people can detect them, and they can pick out the people that are vampires. They can pick vampires out. They can also find people that are werewolves and lycanthropy. So just a little bit about that. The first Dracula film came out in 1922. First time they got the idea to film it, and the film was actually called Nosferatu, a German impressionist film. And the reason it was called Nosferatu is because Bram Stoker had since passed away. By 1922, he was long dead, but his widow was still alive, and she would not sell the rights to the name Dracula. So they said, okay, fine, we'll film it. We'll do the film on it, but we'll just call it something else. We won't use the name Dracula. So it is the Dracula story, just as it's come down to us through the years. It's basically the same story it's always been, but it just was Nosferatu. That was the first one. And, of course, that became a hit. And then the more famous one in 1931 with Bela Lugosi. And then through the years, so many people in film have portrayed Dracula and vampires in so many different ways. Some real vampire stories that I want to talk about, and one actually from the Chicago area here, the Lakeview Vampire. Did you ever hear of him, Leland?
No.
Never heard of the Lakeview Vampire?
No.
Mr. Samuel Patton. Mr. Samuel Patton, born in 1833, lived in the Lakeview neighborhood here in Chicago, was a Civil War veteran. By the time of the Civil War, he had 5 children. All 5 of his children died before the end of the Civil War. One of his children people claimed was buried, and a week later reappeared. So, of course, this would be vampirism. He himself had strange paranormal connections. When he was a child, he claimed to have seen a light out in the field that he followed for something like 2 or 3 hours. He followed this light, and something with this light, and he believes this somehow had this connection between him and vampires. And supposedly he had detected a vampire in the Lakeview neighborhood, found out that there was a vampire. Someone was there that was murdering people, and all of a sudden he determined that this was a vampire. And at that time, too, people with tuberculosis, oftentimes they would say had vampirism. They were vampires. What he actually went on to do was develop a varnish. And it was called a varnish that you would put over a plate glass, and he actually sold this thing. I looked for him to see if you could find something for this online. Maybe somebody still sells this. Vampire varnish, vampire lenses. I looked under different things. Couldn't find anything with it, so it must be something that's obscure and no longer sold. But his theory was that supposedly people that could detect a vampire had some sort of a magical film over their eyes. And through this film over their eye, this sepia kind of film, they would be able to detect people that were vampires or creatures. They could detect them. So he got the idea to develop something like this, which he did do. You put this varnish over plate glass, then you would hold the plate glass up to your eye and look, and it would spot out who was a vampire and who wasn't. And he sold a lot of these to people in the Lakeview neighborhood and that. And as far as I know, no one ever found the vampire. But he did sell a lot of them and made a lot of money doing this. And then he himself passed away, and then a lot of people claimed that they seen him reappear. He would get strange messages and things sent to him on his forehead. And he claimed this was the vampires communicating with him. They would write messages on his forehead, and he would then heal them and go away, and then messages would come back. Different messages would come to him. They would be engraved in his forehead. So sort of a strange man, very much involved in the paranormal and weird. We have the Richmond vampire. An interesting story. Richmond, Virginia, an American vampire, William W. Poole. W. Poole. And part of the thing, strangely enough, that made people believe that this was a vampire's tomb in the Hollywood Cemetery in Virginia was the way the W looked on it. It was W. Poole, and the way the W looked, they said it looked like fangs. But what actually happened with this, there was a man that was supposedly burnt or badly mangled in an accident, and flesh would be hanging from him, and his teeth were broken, and he had red eyes, and was very maniacal. And when people saw this, they said, "Oh my gosh, this is a vampire, it's someone undead." They would dart off after him, and he would go into the tomb and go down and just disappear and go into these subterranean chambers or whatever they were down in the tomb and all that. And then they finally determined that this was a man that was injured in a train accident. There was a train explosion. He was very badly burned in the 1920s in this train accident, and it just escaped into the tomb and went crazy, and they determined that that's what it was. But he fostered a lot of belief in vampirism, too, in American vampirism. Jacques Saint-Germain, interesting character, very interesting. The Comte de Saint-Germain, a European man, very handsome, very educated, very enlightening, someone you wanted to be around. There again, drawing you into him, hosted very lavish parties, was very much in demand at other people's parties. Born in 1710, supposedly died, or his birth certificates say 1784, but many people claimed up until 1970 they still saw him walking around. For a long time, he was very educated. He spoke 6 different languages, did many different things, was very advanced for the 18th century in which he lived. But people noticed strange things about him. One, that he never really entered around until evening hours came. You never really saw him around any place during daylight hours. And also that he never ate anything. At dinner parties and things that he'd be invited to, he was a great guest. He did a lot of talking. He could hold an audience. He was very charismatic, but they never saw him do any eating. So people started getting suspicious of him. And then also, too, as years started passing, they noticed that this man wasn't aging. He still looked the same the way he looked for the last 30 years. He just wasn't aging.
This all sounds like you, Bob. I've never seen you eat. We're always in this basement.
What do you mean you don't see me eat?
We're always out at night.
What the heck did I have when we went to Portillo's that night?
I never saw you eat. I saw you order it, but I don't know what you were doing. Maybe throwing it in the plant.
Pay no attention to him. But it is. But it is
very defensive now.
But it is strange because I did look at a picture. I did look at a picture from 22 years ago, and I looked at it and I says, there's something funny about this picture. I says, I still look the same. So I don't know.
Himself.
Yeah, I don't know. Hey, what am I going to tell you? Maybe
He's
in another
down in New Orleans.
Yeah, maybe in another life. Well, anyway, this
right?
yeah. But anyway,
come to him, though.
This Count Saint-Germain lived in Europe and for a long time got in good with some German baron, Baron Hesse, or Hesch was this man's name, and took over his castle and wound up running that and everything and doing that and everything. And then little by little he migrated his way across, and somehow he wound up in New Orleans. And not too far off Royal Street, he had a beautiful residence there. He had a beautiful home, and the home that actually he lived in, if you see the Popeyes commercial on TV, they do a Popeyes chicken commercial on TV, and it's a very nice, beautiful brick building with the ferns hanging from the galleries on the second floor and all that. That's his house. That was the house that he lived in. And they use that. It has nothing to do with Popeyes chicken, but they use that picture in their commercials just because it looks so nice. And they just recently had the building restored and sandblasted, so it's very pretty and very nice and very looking. But that was actually his residence. And supposedly one party he was hosting there in this New Orleans residence, just off Royal Street, not too far off Royal, in a very fashionable little neighborhood there. And supposedly he had a woman up on the gallery on the second floor and went to take her as a victim and bite her. And she screamed. She saw what was going on, and she tried to get away from him. She jumped off the gallery and killed herself jumped off and down on the street she was. That was it, and she was dead. Well, then, of course, police investigated. They came into the house. They looked through everything. They investigated. They found clothing throughout the house from different eras, different clothing from different centuries and things. All the clothing had blood on it. Of course, the blood is long since dried and everything. They thought this was mysterious, but no one ever saw the Count. They couldn't find him. He just mysteriously vanished through all of this, and that was the end of that. Never reappeared. However, people sometimes still today in New Orleans claim that they see the Count walking around out there. They relate this person to Count Saint Germain. Last recorded visits he paid supposedly in the 1970s. They says, oh, the Count Saint Germain is back. So, yeah, because New Orleans does have a big vampire cult. Yeah. Last time I went down, which was this year, I went down in February, and I started noticing, because I was down for like 16 years, and this was the first time in 16 years I went back, and I noticed the vampire cult's getting bigger. They actually have a vampire cafe there, which is sort of a kitschy kind of a place you can go in and order, different wines with blood in the name and different drinks with blood, and it's all goth and all that kind of thing like that, so it's kind of a fun place. And then there is a vampire headquarters just a little ways down that where they like to hang out. That's their little gathering ground. And then they also have a vampire boutique where you can go in and you can buy vampire-related paraphernalia and things and all that. So little by little, they're having like their own little, they're going to probably end up having their own little vampire neighborhood there eventually, which seems to be the way it's going. So that's just a little bit that I had to say about vampires. We can go on and on more about this, but just a little bit about that I want to say, just some things about vampires. The vampire in pop culture has really caught the public's imagination and really took off. And over the years, the legends have changed quite a lot. For a long time, you couldn't see yourself in the daylight, or daylight they couldn't go into. You couldn't see your reflections in mirrors. You couldn't be photographed, but now they are. I noticed that in some of the recent stories about it, they're actually taking pictures of the vampires. The vampires can go out during the day as long as it's cloudy and not a real sunny day. They're able to go out. So they're changing some of the legends, which for many, many years you couldn't do. So things are changing with that too. And the vampires are becoming more modern. Maybe they're adapting to the world now. So just a little bit about that. Okay, that's enough about vampires. I just wanted to talk a bit about that. Anything else to say about that, Leland?
What is your take on vampires? You're the guest. Be quiet. Besides making fun of Bob with me.
Well, I'm not sure. Are they? Well, I believe the emotional vampires.
Oh yeah.
Now. I believe in that, but the blood-sucking vampires, I'm not sure because I only see the Hollywood version.
Right.
So.
Yeah, the blood-sucking thing, the people that do claim to be vampires now, they don't do that. They don't attack people and suck and bite their jugular vein, that kind of thing like that. It's done, some of them actually don't drink the blood at all, but they live the vampire lifestyle. But they do...
So are they mortal?
Huh?
Immortal.
Well, a lot of them are, some of the ages some of these people are, I don't think they're too immortal, because in actuality, a lot of them are middle-aged and older. You would think it would be like younger people, but actually they're like a little bit older people that are into it, that have kind of been doing it like for years and that, But you do find younger people going into it now too. They do drink blood, but they get the blood from a donor, and what they do is there's a vein in the back, and your back. And they actually tap into this vein, and that's where the blood comes from, and it doesn't do the person any harm, and they drink the blood from that. I don't know if I'd want to do something like this. Either way, I would not want to be a donor, and I would not want to drink the blood. I just don't think that's a wise thing to do.
And from like a health stance.
Yeah, well, like supposedly this is all,
supposedly
checked and everything and all that. It's all done, regulated and all that and everything like that. But still, I'm a little funny about that.
I'm not even thinking like of the big ones, but just like normal, just like diseases. It's just
absolutely, sure.
That you're not going to be testing for.
Because so many things are transferred through blood and through fluids and things like that. So yeah, I just don't know about that. I'm a little leery about that. But not for me to say. I don't know.
Well, then where do you think it gets from the kids in high school reading Twilight to like the Italian vampire cult that killed all those people in the late 80s, early 90s?
Yeah.
What's the middle ground? Like, is this just some like, I don't know. The thing is with vampires, it's just like where's the middle ground of this is like being a fad and like a fashion statement or like
yes,
genre.
That's what I was trying to point that out. That in some cases that's what this is. People are impressionable, and especially young people and older people too are impressionable. And some new movie comes out and they see, oh my gosh, look at them. They're young and they're good looking and they're glamorous and they have all this wealth and they have money and they live this great lifestyle and everything. I want to be like that. So they go into it for that reason. They go into that for that. Some people are a little more serious about it, and they go into it because they just like the idea of vampire. They like that vampire lifestyle. They like it that way. So I guess the medium there somewhere is somewhere between the fantasy and somewhere between the serious. It could start off as something like maybe that you go into just as a fantasy, and then you do take it seriously, and you end up, going into that and everything. When I first started doing, I've told this story before. When I first started doing radio, 12 years ago, there was a psychic in Riverside that I wanted to get. She did tarot readings and card readings and everything. And I wanted to get her as a guest for the show. I had just started doing it. I wasn't doing radio too long. And I thought she'd be good. Her name was Sarah White. And it took a while to get the appointment and set things up with her and everything. And then we finally set up. It was for Thursday afternoon at 1 o'clock. So I went early and everything. And I said, well, all right, I'm not too far from the North Riverside Mall. Let me go stop in the mall, and I'll sit and have a cup of coffee in the food court and sit. And then I'll go and I'll meet with Sarah, which isn't too far away, and we'll see how that goes. So I'm sitting. I'm having my coffee in the food court, and all of a sudden the man just walks up to me. And I kind of looked up, and there he was, all in black, the goth with the dark nail polish and the dark hair and the whole thing and all that and all this. And, okay, here's this man walking. Like I say, they find me. He walked up to me and just started talking to me, and, small talk with the weather and this and that and the other. It was in September and that kind of thing. And he said, I'm a vampire. And I says, oh, really? And I don't know if he thought that was going to shock me or what. I said, really? Do you want to sit down and talk about it? Yeah. So he sat down with me. We talked about it, talked about the whole lifestyle, how he got into it to his girlfriend. His girlfriend was in it first, and then he got into it to her and everything, and was telling me about the lifestyle, that they don't, sleeping in caskets is an optional thing. They don't really sleep in caskets if you don't want to. They prefer nights. They do prefer working at night and living at night and doing that type of thing like that. The drinking blood was optional and all this. And we just had this great conversation. It lasted about 15, 20 minutes. And I asked him if he wanted a cup of coffee, and I was waiting for, no, I rarely drink coffee, or something strange, but nothing like that. And and then when it was kind of over with, I asked him, he says, what brought you over to me? Because I certainly don't fit that mold, I certainly don't, and I said, what brought you over? He says, you just look like somebody that would listen to what I had to say. And that's why I just went, and I said, well, thank you, I appreciate that. And I asked him if he wanted to come on and do the radio, and I thought he'd be a great guest. He didn't want to do it. He liked his anonymity. He didn't want to. Well, you can come on. We don't have to give your name, and no one knows who you are or anything. But no, he kind of shied away from that, and that's where that went. That was it. And then I found out that in that area in Berwyn, and that there is a cult of them there that I didn't know about. Really? There is a cult. So every city has a cult of them there. Just some places are a little more open, a little more obvious, a little easier to find, but they're still there. Yeah, they're around.
So is it just human blood, or is it animal blood?
Some do animal blood, some do human blood. Okay. Yeah, human blood is done through somebody that's a donor. Sometimes the donor is someone that's already a vampire into this. Sometimes the person's not a vampire or into this at all, and they're just donating the blood for them. Now, I don't know how they connect with them if they're really not into it, but somehow they do. So, yeah, just a different lifestyle, Not for me to judge. Everybody to their own, whatever you want to do,
We don't yuck anybody's yum.
No,
not here.
No, not at all. Well, enough said about that. So just to whet whet your appetite about that, we like to throw these things out like this, and if this inspires you to maybe do a little research on your own and do things, I always like to warn people about your research when you're doing research on any subject for that matter. Be careful of internet research. Yes, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Because there is a lot of stuff out there, and there's a lot of things out there in that, but a lot of it is misinformation. So be careful on that. Do through books, through libraries, through hands-on research, talking to actual people when it's possible to do, and that kind of thing like that. I like to do a lot of hands-on things like that, because if you're just kind of sitting at the computer and getting everything off the computer and that, a lot of it is misinformation. So you just have to be a little careful with that. Not all of it is, but there's a lot out there that's just misinformation, because anybody can say anything they want to say on the internet or on Facebook or anywhere else. You can print anything you want as long as it's not something that they're going to censor. So you just have to be a little careful with some of the information that's out there. So that's it with that. Jake stood us up, and I'm going to kick his you-know-what when I see him, because he's done that before, especially after he promised he was going to come on. Miss Tola, let's hear from you again about Tola's Creations.
Okay.
Let's, some more about that. Let's get back to that and get you,
Yeah, I'm a little curious. So you go from being a dispatcher to working in,
law enforcement.
Law enforcement. Sorry, I'm a little tired.
So how did I get to this point? And then all of a sudden you're you saw a storefront, and you're like, no. So I've been a spiritual person my entire life, and so I've been spiritual my entire life, and that was always something that I was into. That was my way of. This is my way of life, and being who I am, I just knew that that type of chaotic environment was not conducive to my spiritual elevation.
You're a very chill person, very relaxed. I can't imagine if something horrible was going on.
Oh.
Or you probably lay down the law. Pun intended.
So, yeah, I'm a very chill person, and that just wasn't conducive to my elevation. And
but why this?
It
seems like some people could go to an office and you went this way.
I could, but I know what my destiny is, and this is my destiny. And I'm all about just being of service. So it's just another way of being of service to the community, and in a more kinder, gentler type of way. That's all. So I'm still of service, and I still give back, and I still help, and I'm very passionate. That was a means to an end. I had to pay the bills. I had to work.
Sure, of course.
But at the end of the day, that has always been stuff that I did along the side. So and I just traveling. I love to travel, so I travel to Nigeria quite often. I bring back different artifacts. I support local artists over there. Bring back art.
You're the third person I've spoken to in the last few weeks that has been to Nigeria recently too. Two folks that I work with, they not knowing each other, both they had just traveled and came back from there. It was just like, what's going on?
Yeah, well, I go there a lot. I go there quite often.
Really?
Yeah, I do. So, do you want me to get into like my lifestyle, my spiritual practice? I practice African spirituality, and African spirituality known as Ifa, IFA, and this predates Christianity. It was the way of life of the original Yoruba people in Nigeria. As the slave trade progressed, you had a lot of enslaved Africans who were taken to different islands. So you had Africans that were taken to Cuba. They practiced Santeria. So it's mixing of different your culture, African spirituality with Catholicism. And the reason why it was mixed with Catholicism, because of the different slave revolts, they were killed for practicing their original way of life, speaking the language, anything dealing with their culture, their history.
It was the same thing with voodoo in this country too. Yes. Africans that came were allowed to practice voodoo. They would have, on Sundays, they would allow them to practice their voodoo and all that. But as long as they sat in on a Catholic service, as long as you sat in on one of the Roman Catholic services, if you sat in, even if you didn't believe in it or whatever, but just show up there and that's fine. You're making the attempt to, but then you can go and you can. And then they found out that, in voodoo, they have the saints. They have St. John, they have St. Expedite, and they have all these different saints. So it can't be too far from us then, When actually it's this far apart, but it's very different. But they sort of tied it into Roman Catholicism, so they said it's okay. So they allowed it to go on.
Especially like when you watch the movies and such, and doing air quotes about voodoo and hoodoo.
Talk
about saints.
The Hollywood
is very Catholic for it.
Yeah, the Hollywood versions of things are very different from what it actually
Hollywood
is.
And even let's just say Saint Barbara. Saint Barbara had the same archetypes as the African divinity Shango. So, and if I'm going to be killed for worshiping Shango, and I see that Saint Barbara has the same archetype. So if I'm praying to St. Barbara, then I can stay alive. So it was very ingenious of them.
You might know this, and I may be... No, I think I'm right on this. I don't know. But there's a tribe in Nigeria that are descended from the Levites, from the Hebrew Levite tribe, the Levites, and they are the priestly tribe. And supposedly they have the Ark of the Covenant.
Really?
The Ark.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
Yeah, they're a Levite. Yeah, supposedly they have the Ark, and they're still priests. They still take care of it. They still do that. Now the Ark no longer is in Nigeria. Now it's in some island or something, and you have to go across like stormy seas or whatever to get to it. But nonetheless, it is the Nigerians that do this, the priestly tribe, and they take care of it. And same thing, the priest comes. He's the only one that goes into it, just like it was in the old days with the Hebrew. The priest goes into the Holy of Holies. He's the only one that's there because he's in direct communication with God. He's the only one that does it. It's a very secretive thing and all that. But supposedly they have the Ark because no one knows.
Which tribe is it, though?
they're descended from the Levites.
But which
I don't know.
African tribe would that be?
Yeah, I don't know.
I know
who they are.
I know what you're talking about because I remember I thought it was so odd because like I was watching a documentary and they're like, we have found the covenant, and it shows the man out in front of a temple and he's just like, yeah, it's in here. It's like, can we go see? He's like, no, like, that's not.
Yeah.
But I'm like, well, I mean.
Well, it's a very sacred thing, and you're not supposed to. It's only supposed to be the priest. Of course, the 12 tribes of Judah. Well, the 12 tribes of Jacob. The 12 tribes became the nation of Israel, and each tribe had something to different. And the Levites, descended from Levi, son of Jacob, were the priests. They had the priestly duties on them. Supposedly, these people are descended from them, and supposedly the ark got taken there through the Queen of Sheba with Solomon. Somehow through King Solomon, like when the temple was destroyed, somehow through the Queen of Sheba, they brought it there to hide it, so no one would get it and everything, and then it just stayed there through the years.
In Nigeria. That is
it's
interesting.
Not a bad place to hide us back then.
Yeah.
No one's going to rock over there back then, especially.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to do some research on that.
If you find it, you got to come back here first and let us know.
Okay, we'll do. We'll do, definitely.
But you can't see it. No one can go in. You can't just go in and see the ark.
I'll believe her. She says, so I'll be like, all right.
Yeah.
Well, you said it's not there anymore. You said it's on an island.
No, they actually moved
something.
it. They took it away from Nigeria because they were getting worried about it. And they
That's
moved it
false
off to an
flag.
island.
You know, they're like, we totally moved it. It's not here.
Yeah. They
So you
moved
think
it
it's
in.
still there?
It's probably still there.
Oh, Lord.
That's a lot of work, if this thing is that.
Yeah.
Nigeria is huge.
Well, for years and years and years, the Hebrews carried it around with them everywhere they went, and it was set up in the tent. It was the tent. And then when Solomon built the temple, then it had a permanent home. And then on the destruction of the temple in what year that was, where they invaded Jerusalem and destroyed everything and leveled the temple, the ark just disappeared. No one knows where it went to. But supposedly, I think somehow Solomon had it taken out, and through his friend, the Queen of Sheba.
So it went from Jerusalem.
Yeah. All the way to Africa.
All the way over to. Oh God.
Yeah, it wound up in a few different places, and then
West Africa.
and then it found its place in Africa. Yeah.
And Nigeria is like down here.
Yeah.
Maybe it sailed around.
Yeah, it moved around a lot.
Wow.
For many, many centuries, it moved around with them, because the Hebrew people moved around all over the place, and wherever they moved, it went with them, And they would set up the tent and the Holy of Holies, and the same thing, the priest would be the only one that went in.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, yeah.
But it is definitely worth looking into and doing some research.
Yeah.
So, when I find out, because I'm going to ask, I'm even going to ask around over there if there are, there's some people, there are people that are
She's
Christians.
thinking, no, man.
I'm thinking, my
she's
wheels are
The
spinning.
contents of the ark are the tablets, the original tablets, the tablets which Moses threw and broke, the broken pieces that were collected, put into the ark, the second set of tablets, and then Moses' staff are supposedly in the ark. And that is your direct communication with God. Direct. That's it. That's like your hotline to God. Yeah, that's it.
Through the tablets.
No, through the ark. Through the ark itself. Through the whole vessel. Through the whole ark itself, yeah.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's worth research.
Yeah. Something different. See, that's what I said. I like looking at different things. I like researching things and that. Yeah,
you are quite the historian. So yes, I want to look into that.
Yeah. Yeah, the Ark of the Covenant. Yeah, supposedly it's in, like I say, Nigeria. But then, well, I shouldn't say it's in Nigeria now. It actually moved out of Nigeria. But there's a tribe in Nigeria that were descended from the Levites, and they're the priests, and they are in the custody of it. They're the stewards of it. They care for it.
So they migrated from east to west.
Yeah, yeah.
Huh.
Africa is actually, many people don't think of it that way, but Africa is actually the cradle of civilization.
It is.
Civilization started in Africa with Egypt. With Egypt and Babylon and all that, the great civilizations were in Egypt, and that's Africa. Last time I looked, Egypt was on Africa, so on the continent, so yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Some people would beg to differ with that.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
This is not that show, though.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. Oh, man. Them folks. What's the folklore like with Nigeria, though? So, have you, talked to anybody out there about it, or is it more of, you're just visiting and traveling?
When I go there, I'm visiting, I'm traveling. I'm doing a lot of spiritual stuff when I'm there. So I'm taking care of business. I'm doing spiritual stuff. I'll be there again in July. So what I do, it's called my festival. So I'm not just a priest. My children are as well. So it's like a yearly festival that we'll do. It consists of feeding of different, the orishas that we have. So we feed them, so meaning sacrifices are done. So we're feeding of these orishas. There are divinations that are done, and it's like a yearly thing. It lasts for the whole year. And once you're done with all the spiritual aspects of the festival, then there's a big party. So it's a big party, it's a big celebration. I have a lot of videos and stuff posted. So it's a big celebration. You have drumming, you have dancing, you have a lot of theatrics, people that are acrobats, they'll come and they do, the people in costume. You have people that are eating fire, the Shango priest. I mean, it's like a magical type of thing. Like, they have the ability to eat fire. So it deals more into that different type of orisha. So it's really, really, really interesting. And I take people with me when I go. I'm looking into doing a retreat next year. Come on, you're welcome. I'm gonna go. You can go. Come on, you can go. And so I'm looking into like a retreat for next year. More so for like ancestral type of thing. We call it Egungun, the Egungun Society. So Egun means your ancestor. Mm-hmm. So it's more like it will be more so like an ancestral celebration.
Very difficult. Learning. Very difficult for people, African Americans in this country, very difficult for them to trace their ancestry back.
It is.
It's extremely rare for someone to actually trace their ancestry back to Africa. It does happen, but it's very rare. It's very hard to do.
But we have different things that we do. So because, I went as far as I could go via researching family trees and things like that. But there's spiritual readings that you could do. It's almost like a spiritual DNA. And spiritually, they're able to tap into the different ancestors through your bloodline and find out where you're from and codify those type of things. And then now we have DNA. And they all, and so it kind of confirms a lot of stuff that I was told spiritually. So
have you done that?
I have. I've done like 3 different DNA things. I did 23andMe. I did Ancestry DNA, and I did African Ancestry. Now, African Ancestry goes back to the tribe. It actually will tell you the tribe. And
it's
so I did my patrilineal.
It's not an easy thing to trace back.
Well, whatever the system is. So in order to trace my father's, I had my father do his DNA. So I did the patrilineal, and I could do mine for my mom because, of course, the matrilineal. So with my father, it comes back to the Yoruba tribe. And that is the spiritual practice that I deal with anyway. And my mom, it's the Mende tribe from Sierra Leone.
Now, how accurate was it, would you say, compare the two between the spiritual way of doing it and then using, like, the scientific way?
They were pretty
close?
Yeah, very close.
That's impressive. That's cool.
Very close, yeah. So the people knew what they were talking about.
Yeah, they knew what they were doing.
Many years ago.
It's a good system.
And this was before DNA was, like, even really, like, a thing. Or it was very expensive because it wasn't as popular.
Yeah. So. My grandfather came here, their family came here from Ireland in the 20s and blah, blah, blah. But basically, he had to do a DNA test in, like, 1992. It costs, like, $1,200 of 1992 money. And that wasn't to figure out where he was from. It was to, like, figure out diseases and stuff. Now that's, like, an add-on. It's like a $20 add-on.
Absolutely.
It's like,
I know, right?
Yeah.
But it's crazy.
Technology
it's just like
has come a long way.
And the more and more samples they get, the better, more accurate the database gets. So it's fascinating.
I love that stuff. It's it doesn't change anything. It doesn't change anything, but it's nice to know where you came from.
That
it's
is
nice
true.
to know.
That's true.
You know, I mean, you are what you are now, what you are, and everything, and nothing changes. It doesn't change.
No.
But it's nice to know.
It brings
you feel
awareness.
Complete.
Absolutely.
You feel like a completeness, like you know something about your family.
I feel like too, like people that live in America and Americans in general, I think are a lot more into it than like Europeans and other countries, just because like we're such a melting pot. So it's like, yeah, we're Irish or German or wherever, but I feel like we're also American, so it's kind of like you'd like to trace your roots.
Now, certain Europeans run into the same thing African Americans run into, tracing their ancestry back. You'll get so far, and then you run into dead ends with it. And a lot of it is because of wars, because a lot of the records and things were kept in churches. Churches kept the baptismal records, they kept records of weddings, they kept the records of, everything that went on was in the church. Well, World War I, things got bombed, things got blown up. World War II, things got bombed, things got blown up. A lot of records were just completely lost. A lot of stuff was just gone, A lot of families were wiped out too. Depended what your nationality was. We had a little thing called the Holocaust. So a lot of people just got wiped out, and the whole families just don't exist. They're gone. So you might have maybe one person that can sort of, trace their ancestry back to these people, but it's just hard to do. It's hard. So some people, you run into some snafus with it, I like watching Lewis Henry, what's his name, on TV that does that.
On WTTW?
He's got the three names, Lewis Henry Gates or Henry, whatever it is.
I know who you're talking about.
He does the ancestry, but he does celebrities.
Yeah, on WTTW, on Channel 11.
And he takes them back and way back and way back. And I can remember him doing, like, for life, I don't know who the black man was, but he was in tears. And he says, you're one of the few that I could actually trace back to Africa. He actually traced his ancestry back to Africa. And he says, that is so rare to be able to do, Yeah, it is. Because he run into just snafus with that,
Yes.
Yeah. You go back to so far, and then that's it. After that, everything just ends. That's it, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a shame for people to lose their identity. Like
it
that,
is.
To lose who
Very
you are.
much so.
And where you came from. Like you say, it doesn't change anything, but it's nice to know.
It is.
Nice to know where you've come from, yeah.
Yeah.
You have to do that one time at Tola's. You'll have to do an ancestry thing or something like that. Some sort of a thing. I don't know how you go about that, but we'll have to put our thinking caps on and come up with something for that. See if we can do something like that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Be something to think about, yeah. Well, this is interesting. Like that. Boy, we covered a lot of different ground there, didn't we? Yeah.
This has been one of my more favorite episodes. Okay. It's been a less spooky, but it's been super fascinating and interesting.
Yeah, cool.
I like talking about stuff like this.
Yeah. I do too.
It's interesting.
I like to keep an open mind about all sorts of things.
As you should.
And I stay open, I stay receptive to things, whatever people are saying. And I learn a lot by listening to other people and listening to what they have to say. And it's great.
True.
I like doing that. That's why I love people. I like that. Yeah, you learn a lot from other folks. Just listen to what they have to say. Listen to people's stories.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, it's great. I like doing that. Johnny Carson. I remember, Johnny Carson, of course, we all know from The Tonight Show and all that. When he retired from The Tonight Show and that, I don't know if it was Nigeria where he spent a lot of time, but he spent a lot of time in Africa, and he loved it. And he learned to speak, I don't know what they speak in Nigeria, but he spoke Swahili, wherever Swahili is spoken. But he learned to speak it fluently, and he says he loved it because the people there didn't treat him like he was any celebrity. I was just a person, and I was just one of them, and he loved that.
Yes.
He loved doing it. That's why and they loved him there and everything, and great,
Yeah.
So he spent a lot of his time in Africa. Yeah, he liked that. Yeah. Yeah.
I highly recommend, though, too, if you've never looked at a proper globe map, to actually see how big Africa actually is.
Oh,
yes.
People are
how the whole world can fit inside of
it's insane.
The whole continent.
I was in Africa one time, many years ago. I went to Morocco.
Really?
Yeah, Morocco, North Africa. One time I was there many, many years ago. Yeah, Morocco. Yeah.
So you're going with me?
Yeah, I'm going to go. I don't know about this July, but I want to go.
Yeah. Well,
bust out that credit card.
Are you kidding? That would be the trip of a lifetime for me. Are you kidding? I would love it.
Oh yeah, you would love it.
I would. Yeah.
You would love it, and it's a beautiful home that we stay on. The family's compound. It's a big, beautiful, a newly built 9-bedroom, 11-bathroom home. And
11 bathrooms?
11 bathrooms, 9 bedrooms.
9 bedrooms, 11 baths. Wow.
It's like a big mansion. So it's 9 bedrooms, 11 bathrooms, gated. I mean, everything is secure there, and I don't have to worry about anything. My children have always been able to go outside and play, and I don't have to worry, about anything. The food is good. I feel like I'm home. I feel very welcome.
It'd be the trip of see, if I'm going to do these things, I got to start doing them now because I'm getting too old. I'm in my mid-60s now, and I can't wait.
Oh, you got plenty of time.
I can't wait 10, 15 years to do these things. I got to do them now while I can still walk and still get around and still do them.
Well, if you shop around too, you'll be very surprised like how affordable these kinds of trips are.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people are like, oh, I can't travel. It's thousands and thousands of dollars. It's like, no, if you plan it
right. If you travel on
the
right time, the right season, it's affordable.
I don't know how that works now. You're going in July, and it was July like winter, so it's cooler, or July be just as hot like it is?
It's going to be pretty warm there. The only difference,
monsoon season too.
Yeah, it's rainy season, so that's the only difference during then. It'll be
July
rainy
will be rainy season.
It will be rainy season,
so you get all the rains.
The mosquitoes.
Oh, yeah.
and so I one time
got to get all your shots, all your malaria shots, and all your
your shots, or either you take the pills before you start. But I have my shots and stuff already. I just take the malaria pills with me. I start taking them before I go. Take them while I'm there. And I haven't had any problems. I take citronella and I mix it in a carrier oil, so I could either make it as strong or as light as I like. But sometimes it just seems like off didn't work for me. And they were just like, it seemed like when I came out, they just said dinner. I mean the oh god,
a bug magnet, huh?
Yeah, just wear the net while you walk
I
through.
wish I could, but it's the rainy season, so of course the mosquito count is going to be way high. But I generally go if I go in the wintertime. Sometimes I would go and I would like spend New Year's and the Christmas holiday would go over there as well. And it's not as bad. Yeah, it's not as bad. No, they don't even celebrate Kwanzaa over there. No, because they don't.
Kwanzaa like an American invention?
It's American, and it's an American thing.
So it's really not even an African holiday. They don't really celebrate Kwanzaa.
They use Swahili. It's just to promote unity and all that kind of stuff in the community. But no, they don't celebrate Kwanzaa.
I get it. So it's more like a North American invention than it is actually authentic African.
Yeah, because an American is the one who created the holiday.
The Kwanzaa. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
So no, it's not. Yeah. But we don't have much, so we just gotta try to do what we have.
Got to sell cards somehow, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So
wow, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
What a fascinating show. Thank you so much.
Yes,
please come back anytime you'd like to.
I will gladly come back.
Yeah, come back anytime you'd like. Yes. Go ahead, throw in your last plugs for Tola's Creations.
Okay, so Tola's Creations.
Give them the address, give them the phone
number.
If you
are interested, come on out. You can see myself and Bob this Saturday. The palmistry workshop is at 3:30, from 3:30 to 5, 2943 West 71st Street, and that is Tola's Creations Botanica Wellness and Cultural Center. And you can also find many of the objects and items and art and curios that I sell at www.tolascreations.com. And if you don't want to pay for shipping, if you need something ASAP, you can always click that option. They'll deliver it to you like Uber Eats. So that is one of the delivery options that I have.
You can avoid paying the shipping.
Well, no, you're going to have to pay for that. But if you don't want to wait for the shipping to be mailed, or if you don't want to come out and you need something immediately.
Now, if you don't have a store in the state of Illinois, and you live in Illinois and you buy something, you don't pay the Illinois state sales tax. Neat loophole. Yeah.
Hey.
Yes, if you order something from someone that has a store or a catalog or something, and they don't have any outlets or stores in Illinois, you don't pay Illinois state sales tax. Yippee!
That's interesting. Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Cool beans.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
What a nice show. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Leland, thank you, too, for coming on.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Leland.
Nice to meet you, too.
Yeah. I have a good friend named Leland. I went to high school together.
What? There's only a few of us.
Yeah.
I have a friend named Leland, too, right here. Yeah.
Cool.
Actually, I was thinking of giving up the show. For a while, I was kind of like, I'm starting to get tired of it. I've been doing it so long and everything like that. And then people were saying, no, you really shouldn't give it up. You should kind of. And then I thought, well, maybe Leland would want to co-host. So I asked him if he wanted to do it. And he said, yeah, he'd be happy to do it. So we brought Leland in, and then I felt like that was kind of like a little new blood into it. Because me, I'm just doing
right.
I'm just doing
the fans that call me a hero.
Look,
I'm telling you, this guy's a vampire.
Blood. It's vampire.
I'm gonna make shirts that says Bob's a vampire. What was the other shirts? The Bob hates Leland or something like that. I'll have to listen back.
Bob, one friend of mine for birthday, she got me 2 Bob shirts. This is what an awesome Bob looks like, or something, and the other one something else about Bob. I don't know, some kind of crazy Bob stuff. Yeah.
Oh, God.
Poor Bob. He's just getting, he does this nice thing for everybody. We just pick on him.
No. I don't. I don't do anything that anybody else doesn't. You're supposed to do things wherever you can, even if it's just something small, some little thing. It doesn't have to be something that's going to change the earth. Just holding a door for somebody, saying hello to somebody. Doing putting a plant out, in the garden where you live, or just do a little something. It doesn't have to be just little things like that make a difference.
That's
they do.
True.
Little things do.
I'm
a big believer in that. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
big believer in karma too. You sow what you reap.
Yes.
You send good things out there, good things come back at
Absolutely.
you. So I'm a believer in that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. God's been very good to me. He's been very, very nice to me and very good to me, so I'm very happy with that. So I hope he continues to favor me for the time that I have left. And,
make it to Nigeria then.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to mention some of my stuff here too.
Oh.
Just to let you know, Chinatown tour will be, that one we've already sold out. We've already sold out the June 1st Chinatown tour, but we are running a second one on June 8th, and that will be with the Central Stickney Park District. Give them a ring at 708-496-8292. If you want to come on and do a Chinatown tour, we'll stop. We visit a Buddhist temple. We have a nice dinner. We go to Chinatown. We walk you through Chinatown, and we tell you all the different points and ins and outs of Chinatown. A lot of things you wouldn't know if you just kind of, pass by it and that. So that's kind of a neat tour. I love doing the Chinatown tour. June 15th, I will be at NOLA, the New Orleans, Louisiana Kitchen, and they're over in Park Forest. And I'll be there doing palm readings with them. Something new. I'm going to start with them doing that. What else have I got going on here? Other things going on. I'm not going to mention all this stuff. My palm meetings regular at the Irish Legends, working on that. Some fall tours that we got going on. I'm doing the cemetery tour in the fall. That's in the fall. We'll mention all this stuff later in that. I'm actually going to get a few weeks off there in July and August where there's nothing going on. I want to have a few weeks just to not schedule stuff. So it's summer,
Right.
You want to enjoy summer,
Absolutely.
If I want to go to Great America, I want to go to Great America, Not that I'm going to Great America, but
you gotta get out of the
There's too much sunlight.
No, I love the sun, actually. Well, you'll see me by the end of the summer. You'll see me very tan.
I'm the one that's pale, right?
Yeah. I can't wait. Our pool where I live, we got a real nice pool there at the complex where I live, and our pool opens up this weekend. So if the weather's good, I'll be in there getting wet. I love it. Yeah. Okay, that's it. Tola, thank you so much for coming on. It's a pleasure. Leland, thank you, sir. It's always nice having you with us, and you add a lot to the show. I'm glad you're still sticking with it. And John, thank you so much for allowing me to come and do these shows.
You're welcome.
Thank you, John. Yeah. And also thanks to Mr. John Chicanda. Now, John Chicanda, I think, had some surgery done, too.
Yeah,
with his knee, he had that.
Oh,
so wish John well. We hope he was recovering from that. And
speedy recovery
John and I,
for
we were
you.
talking about some projects. We're going to get together on a project and something he wants to do, too. So we always have these little things.
Sidebar, I totally spaced. I got to talk to John, too.
Yeah. So we always have these little things in the works. I got like 3 or 4 of these things in the works right now, and then I got other stuff that's written in stone, and that's enough. I got to write everything down. I'm getting too old to remember all this all the time. I got to write them down now so I see it in front of me. Thank you, John.
Okay.
Give us our X-Files music. Not sure if I'm going to do. We'll probably do maybe a June show if I do it earlier in the month, and then that'll be kind of it for the summer. And then we'll pick the shows back up again in September. Take the summer off.
You have been listening to Paranormal Radio with Bob Trzeciak from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Monday, May the 22nd, the year 2023. Paranormal Radio was directed by John DeVita, and the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network is Mr. John Chicanda. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Monday, May the 22nd, the year 2023. Until next time, friends, thanks for listening.